I've been thinking about how modern filmmakers, especially though not exclusively Disney, are approaching inserting diversity into their movies. And we're not talking about creating an original show, original IP, and simply writing it with an original diverse cast in mind. What I'm talking about is specifically changing something for the sake of #diversity and inclusion. Unlike gender, I think there is a spectrum here, and I want to talk about it and break it down a little bit. This is a continuation of some of the thoughts that I shared in my last video. It was a video on forced corrections, forced diversity in modern films. You can check it out here if you like, and if you're new to my channel, welcome! Hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below to feed the algorithm gods. So about that diversity spectrum. You pretty much have complete fiction on one end and real history on the other one, and a big blurry gray area in the middle. So let's start with the two extremes. On the one side, you have basically the genre of the documentary. Real history, real historical figures, real events, real world at some point in history. Unless you are Netflix's Cleopatra, you will want to present as accurate of a depiction of a historical person or event as you can, based on the facts available to you at that time. These facts may well change over time, new discoveries may be made, but the point is, you're not working based off of "my mother told me," or, you know.
Remember my grandmother saying to me, "I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black."
On the other end, you have complete fiction, meaning that you as the author create a work of fiction, so here, needless to say, you can do anything you want. Fictional characters, fictional world where the fictional events take place. No one's gonna tell you you can't write a fictional story with people of color in 2023. Of course you can make any rules you want for that fictional world. And that's the kind of diversity that we are happy to see, especially when it's an organic part of the story, not the sole focal point. But then we get to that gray area, and this is where things become a bit tricky. Let's take everyone's favorite Tolkien as an example. His are also works of fiction. Made up world, made up timeline characters, even fictional races. So why isn't Tolkien free game for diversity and inclusion? Well, exactly because Tolkien is the author of his own works, not some postmodernist showrunner that thinks they can do things better now. So even though the work is fiction, any adaptations should respect it, and any potential changes should not be done for the sake of modern sensibilities, but for the sake of adapting it to the screen better, all the while still honoring the author and the original work. If you want more diversity and representation, write your own diverse and representative work. Do not hijack an established IP and change everything about it, except for the title that you of course need for marketing purposes. But yeah, we know that The Rings of Power has far bigger issues than a cast that is supposed to be portraying characters in fictional English mythology, but that are actually more multicultural than the population of modern-day California. The thing is, with forced diversity and race swapping in an established IP, you will likely run into issues even when your intentions are good. Take this for example. In this article, well, the article is recapping someone who is criticizing The Little Mermaid, Disney's 2023 remake, because it's glossing over slavery that would exist in that period of time where The Little Mermaid takes place, and since the new Ariel is now black. Apparently, the new Little Mermaid is problematic because, quote, "it imagines a world where slavery does not exist in the 18th century, and that's not how things were in real life." Now don't get me wrong, to focus on something like this in a children's movie is kind of ridiculous, but in the greater context, I think there is a point to be made. Race swapping in a fictional IP is one thing, but race swapping in an established historical fiction-ish, or fiction that ties to real history or characters, that is a slightly different category. When you have a movie based on history, or taking place at some point in history, even if your characters are fictional, for the most part at least, if you suddenly make a, for example, mixed society, questions will likely pop up. I'm not claiming that that's necessarily a bad or a good thing, but the fact that people are not just saying, oh yeah, that's completely normal, why not? The fact that people are perhaps pausing and saying, hang on, that's a little bit strange, that should be expected. Like that movie about the black woman Vikings Valhalla, watching that, it's just impossible to say, yeah, I totally buy it. This could totally have been a thing in Viking era Scandinavia. Or let's look at Bridgerton, that takes place in the 1810s England. So real setting and era, mostly fictional characters and fictional storyline. Even though in my previous video I said that the really diverse casting in Bridgerton kind of works, since we can suspend our disbelief and perceive it as part of that highly fictionalized world, there is no denying that certain things are not executed without flaw. For example, introducing two Indian girls, or girls of Indian descent I should say, in season 2. They're aristocrats who mingle with the high society of Georgian England, of Georgian London. This opens a pretty big can of worms, because India, as a former British colony, at this point in history was very much under the thumb of the British Empire, and pretending that these two girls could just coexist in the white English society maybe stems from good intentions, and, you know, saying back in the day this would not have been possible, but now we can reimagine a world like this. But the thing is, it completely overlooks history. I'm not saying that depictions like this are either wrong or right, but I do think that historical context matters. And with portrayals like this, you are doomed if you address it and doomed if you don't, I think. If you simply drop a person of color into a fictionalized Georgian England without addressing why they are here, how they are here, and why they are perceived in exactly the same way as the rest of the population, you can't hope for the audience to not have questions. Diversifying the cast just for the sake of it, or to correct some historical injustices, and pretending that the people of that time didn't see color, is historically and culturally disingenuous. Nonetheless, it does gloss over the prejudice and the terrible ways in which the British Empire had treated these colonies in the past, the people of those colonies. History is not pretty, but I don't think that the answer is trying to correct its mistakes in such a way. But as I said, if you do start to address things like that, why it is this way in this fictional universe, for every question that you answer, 5 new ones will pop up. And the other thing is, we all know that the door only swings one way. We know that there are double standards that are very much alive when it comes to giving this type of treatment to history. If someone said, let's make a racially diverse fictional movie that is set in historical Japan, people will lose their minds. Or let's make a fictional movie about Martin Luther King, but let's make him Korean. It would never happen, and there's a reason why it wouldn't. So why are we so lenient about doing this to European or Western history? Every country was, at some point in history, had slaves, or accepted slavery, or treated other countries bad, or wanted to have the... So yeah, why is Western history free game, but it's unimaginable to do that to some other nation or culture or ethnicity? Let me end this video with this question, and I'm curious what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.